teacher. I think she dropped some brick or a giant ice cube or something on her foot. A giant block of ice, I don't know. It was something on her foot, and she crushed everything in her foot and couldn't get out of bed and was doing surgeries for the rest of the school year. I mean, it happened in the first half of the year, and then she was out for the rest of the year. And we had her on like a big screen in front of the classroom, and she just like taught from that. But we had a sub sitting in the back.
There might be, I'm not sure, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
before
COVID,
we were doing
like that. Yeah, one of my
online.
son's teachers has COVID now.
No. It's a hot spot around here right now.
I guess Morris County's like red zone, I think.
Yeah. All right, so today is yoga for stress, and the theme of the week working with the niyama is discipline, tapas. So discipline can often be thought of being quite strong and firm with yourself and building heat. But today we're going to think about it in being strong and patient with ourselves. So we're going to start down on our back. We're going to take it really slow today. So the invitation is to challenge yourself to remain on the mat, even when we're still, even when we're not giving our mind a lot to focus on. So a different kind of discipline. Discipline to have the whole body experience without the distraction of a lot of movement. So landing on your back. Starting to feel how your breath is. Starting to look inside at the common places you hold tension in your body. And getting to know what is present before we start moving. As you slow down, where does the mind go? We're going to gently bring some focus to our breath. Invitation to soften your eyes, close, and really focus inward. So bringing your hands down just below your rib cage, so resting just below your rib cage. Feel the warmth of your hands and just start to connect with your breath, moving your hands. And then start to really focus on filling up the bottom corners of your lungs. And then really slowly pushing out all of the air from your lungs so your hands drop down. And then gently bring your hands to the sides of your rib cage. You can either just place them on the sides of the rib cage or cross your hands with a little hug and place your hands on either side of your ribs. And now we're going to focus on the sides of our lungs. So focus on pressing your breath out into the sides of your ribs, watching your ribs move with your breath. Think about just gently pushing your breath in between each rib. Filling up the sides of our lungs very intentionally. So not with a lot of force, just slow and gentle, but nice and full. And then gently bring your hands just underneath your collarbones, watching your chest rise and fall. And starting to think about really pulling as much fresh energy into the tops of your lungs as you can possibly fill up. All your focus right into the top corners of your lungs, watching your chest rise and fall. And then let your hands soften to the ground and take a moment to adjust and wiggle and try and think about the shoulder blades landing nice and heavy in the ground. We're going to think about the backs of our lungs, and imagine you could fill up the backs of your lungs so much so that you almost feel like you're lifting yourself up off the ground just with your breath. Connect to that point where your back touches the ground. Imagine massaging your back with your breath. And then let all focus of your breath go and land your awareness in your body wherever it seems to be calling to you. Maybe there's some muscle tightness that you can find. Maybe there's some tingling somewhere with fresh breath. And then give a slight push of the back of your head into the ground and lift your chin up to the ceiling. Make a lot of space for your throat. And we're going to focus on our breath again, this time thinking about our throat. So imagine that you could open your throat. So press the walls of your throat open and watch your breath as it slowly comes in through your nose and down your throat. And see if you can find all four corners of your lungs. And then watch it as you slowly push the breath back out of your lungs, through your throat, and out your nose. See how much you can actually find sensation of feeling the breath as it moves in and out of your body. Imagine that you're completely open and soft to receive new breath. That you've softened all muscle tightness in the chest and the neck and the throat and down into the torso. And there's so much space for the fresh breath to come in. And it easily moves back out. And then we'll move on to some muscle movement through the face. So squeeze the eyes really, 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 really tight shut and feel what you feel in the muscles of your face. So as you do this, notice if you bring any other tension into your body. Maybe as you're squeezing your eyes really, really, really tight, maybe you feel something in around the jaw, maybe in the neck, maybe you even feel something in the lower back. Checking in, having a physical experience. Squeezing your eyes. And take a deep breath in as you squeeze even tighter, and as you exhale, just let everything soften. And then we're going to squeeze the cheeks in. So make a fishy face, squeeze your cheeks in. Squeeze in as tight as you can, really trying to find as many muscles in around the cheeks as you can. Squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. Taking a deep breath in, squeeze tight, and with the exhale, leave everything soft. Notice how that feels. Take the chin and press the chin all the way up to the ceiling. Start to feel the muscles that make this happen. So really pressing actively your chin to the ceiling, and notice anything else that fires up again. Maybe some muscles in the chest and shoulders, or you're grabbing. Maybe even down into the back. Notice. Squeeze even tighter, and then take a deep breath in and let it go with the exhale. See if you can connect to the sensation of the jaw kind of falling into the muscles, letting go. And then we're going to work on the muscles of the neck. So nice and gentle when we work with the muscles of the neck. We just want to find connection. So once you find a sensation in the muscle, don't push to its extreme. You don't want to increase strain in the neck. So with your head on the ground, a gentle press of the head into the ground. See if you can find some muscles in your neck. So pressing the head down, trying to keep the shoulders on the ground, trying to find the muscles in the neck. See if you can find some muscles, connect to the back of your neck. And then take a deep breath in and soften. Take your chin over to your right shoulder. Just connect to feeling whatever's present on the left side. Trying to keep the left shoulder nice and grounded. Notice where your chin stops and notice what seems to be stopping it. Find the muscles. And then press the right side of your head a little bit down into the ground. See if you can find a little more connection to the left side of your neck. And then take a deep breath in. And exhale, soften all tension. Let the head kind of roll to where it rolls. And take the chin all the way over to the other side. Find the right side of your neck. And then a little press down of the head into the ground. Find the muscles in your neck. See how many muscles you can find. Maybe even a gentle press of the right shoulder into the ground. And then take a deep breath in and let everything soften. Notice if your head moves from where it was but doesn't come back to neutral. Just kind of notice where it flops to. And then bring your head back to neutral. Chin to the ceiling. And now we're going to press our shoulders actively into the ground. So leaving your arms soft for a moment, we're going to press our shoulder blades into the ground. So see if you can press your shoulder blades into the ground with the muscles on your upper back. And see if your lower back is trying to do all the work, maybe even your glutes. Check in on the feet. See if your feet are trying to assist. We're just trying to find the muscles of the shoulders, pressing the shoulder blades down into the ground. I know Kaylee's using some other muscle groups because I can hear her kind of snickering at herself. Take a deep breath in and then let everything soften. So we're really trying to find that mind-body connection. We're trying to isolate muscle groups and connect to them. So take the palms of your hands about halfway down to your hips. We're going to place the palms of your hands down onto the ground. Make sure that when you're taking them down, you're not already straining and pulling your shoulders up out of the ground. So shoulders are still soft on the ground. Hands are down on the ground. Now we're going to press our hands into the ground and notice which muscles fire up. So you may be using your back here, your low back. You may be using your glutes and your feet. Maybe using muscles of your stomach. Try to press your hands down and your shoulders down and get the action to be up in your upper shoulders and chest. And obviously a little bit in your arms. Hold, see if you can connect to this, and then we're going to pulse this. So a little pulse on, pulse off. Really trying to connect with turning shoulder and chest muscles on, not low back and glutes. Shoulder and chest. Maybe try to soften the neck a little. You might need to move your chin around so that you can soften the neck. Trying to use shoulders. And then press and hold. Squeeze really tight. And then soften into the ground. Notice if your shoulders landed a little heavier. This time we're going to flip our palms. Palms are going to be facing the ceiling, and we're going to press the back of our hands down into the ground. So press the back of your hands down into the ground and press your shoulder blades into the ground. So I'm trying to press through the shoulders, soft low back, soft feet, soft face, soft breath. Press a little firmer, take a deep breath in, and then soften. Notice if your shoulder blades fell a little heavier, maybe they're a little closer to the ground. Notice if one seems higher than the other. Just checking in, getting to know. And then we're going to move through the upper back. So if the eyes are closed, you can soften them open. We're going to bring our arms out even with the shoulders, palms up. We're going to move across the body. So we're going to take one hand over past the other hand. Important, we are working through upper back here. So don't make this movement come from your lower back, your hips, your glutes. We're trying to move with the upper back. We want the head to remain soft, so it's going to roll naturally. And we want this to be a freeing movement, not a strengthening movement. So inhale, open. Exhale, take your right hand and cross over. Let your hips move on the ground naturally and softly. And then inhale, back open. Exhale, bring the left hand cross over. So your head is rolling on the ground and you're just trying to free up across the upper back. Moving with your breath. Nice and slow, and noticing if your glutes want to do this work, if you're moving from your hips. Think about opening, making more and more space in between the shoulder blades. Staying connected to your breath. And then land open. See if you can get your shoulder blades a little heavier on the ground. We're going to take the arms up to the ceiling, fingertips to the ceiling. We're going to hold our arms up, so lift our shoulders up off the ground, active and strong. Check in. What is your neck doing? What is your face doing? Soft low back. Lifting arms up, holding shoulders up. So really pressing active arms and shoulders. And then keeping this strong activation, we're going to pull the shoulders down and push the shoulders up. So it's a small, tiny movement, just trying to connect to the shoulders. And again, soft stomach, soft low back, soft glutes. Keep an eye on those bigger muscle groups. They always want to do all the work. Try and locate these smaller muscles. Connect with them.
Wait, soft stomach?
Huh?
Wait, soft stomach?
Yes.
I can't do this. What muscles do you use if you don't use your stomach?
You're lifting your shoulders, just your shoulder blades.
Yeah, with your stomach.
No. You have muscles in your shoulders, I swear. And then let your shoulders land. We're going to inhale, little activation in the arms. Open the arms up to the ground so your hands touch the ground. And exhale, squeeze them back. So nice and slow, not flopping, trying to open with shoulders and arms and chest, not stomach.
I'm
Stomach
still using my
soft.
stomach.
Tell your stomach to settle down. Nice and soft. So whenever you notice that there is a bigger muscle group trying to do all the work, it can tell you that some of the muscles you're trying to use may have some weakness in them. So really trying to connect and focus in on the group that we're trying to use and soften the bigger activators. So soften glutes, soften low back, soften legs and feet, and try to soften stomach. And then bring the arms up, look at the hands, spread the fingers, make some movements with the hands. So little wiggles with the fingers. And then soft, slow circles with the hands. Watching what you're doing with your face and your neck and your breath, switch your circles. So really challenging to stay in the body and look at what the body's trying to do. We're not just flopping around in joints or flopping our body around in space. We're trying to connect with what it's doing. So then take your hands back down to the ground and try to soften your shoulders a little more to the ground. Maybe give them a wiggle. We're moving down. So we're going to move down towards the stomach and the lower body. So feet about hip width apart, a comfortable distance from the glutes. So if they're too close, you might be pushing into the knees. If they're too far, you're not quite using the muscle grip we're looking for. So comfortable distance, feet down. Start to feel the feet on the ground. So wiggle the toes, move the feet around. Get to know your feet, what's going on. And then we're going to press into the feet. So challenge for this movement is to press into the feet, activate backs of the legs and glutes, but also try to activate front of the hips. So right in front of the hips, we're going to be pulling our hips up out of the ground as well as lowering, moving with our breath. So inhale, lift the hips, and exhale, lower. So we're not looking to lift the hips super high. We're looking to lift enough to hold and strengthen the muscles. We're not looking for a big arch. We're looking for a very soft neck and grounded shoulders. We're not working with the upper body. So just moving with your breath. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. And really trying to connect to, is this movement coming only from pushing into the ground? Or is it coming only from the glutes firing up super strong because they're big?
It's only coming from my stomach. I think that's the only muscle that ever works in my body.
Inhaling, lifting, exhaling, lowering. So if you have a challenging muscle group, bring your hands there and try to remind that muscle group that it doesn't have to do all the work. So bring your focus with your hands so that you know where you need to soften just a little so that you can bring more activation to some of the other muscles. And then lower the hips. We're going to work with tilting the pelvis. It's a teeny movement. So we're going to tilt the pelvis up and then down. Small, tiny movement. Trying to focus on the muscles that are really close to the bones. So trying not to use the glutes to let our pelvis move up and down. Trying to think about in front of the hips. So if you find your hip bones and then just in towards midline in front of the hips, think about that muscle group. Maybe even bring your hands right over your hips to help you think about where you're using. Try to have soft legs and feet.
I have no idea what muscle is working.
And then let your pelvis come to neutral. Take your feet about mat width apart. And we're going to slowly bring knees to one side and then the other. Side sway slow. And as you start to do it, maybe pausing, feeling the top of your thigh, feeling your quads. As you bring your knee towards center. Letting your hips kind of move naturally, whichever way they feel right. Keeping the movement out of the sacrum and in the front of your body. And then bring your hips back to neutral. Feet about hip width apart, further away from the glutes. So place the heels down on the ground. A bend in your knees, but not a big bend. And we're going to press the heels down into the ground. So press the heels down into the ground. Which muscles do you find? So see if you can press the heels down into the ground and strengthen the feet. You can pull the toes towards the shin. It can help you connect to the lower muscle groups. You might start to feel the shins, muscles in the shins, and the backs of the calves, backs of the lower leg. Pressing the heels down into the ground. Now see if you can soften your low back, your glutes, and your stomach. So really focus on lower legs. So a little bit harder to do. Really try to soften the glutes. Press the heels down. Find the backs of the legs, the lower leg. See if you can soften everything else. Breathe. And then press as hard as you can and take a deep breath in. And then let go, soften, notice where your body lands. Notice if one knee's in one direction or one foot's in one direction. Just notice. And breathe. And then take your feet and legs as long as they can go. So let your heels be as far away from the glutes as possible. Point your toes as if you're trying to touch your big toes down to the ground. Open up the front of your legs. And then take your feet a little bit over to the right, letting your hips stay where they are. So feet go a little bit to the right first. If you like, you can take your left foot and place it on top of the right. And then we're going to take our shoulders a little bit over to the right, making a big banana on the ground. So thinking about, you can lift your left arm up, making the huge banana shape, but the left arm isn't integral. If you have interesting pinches or things going on in your shoulder, you can leave the arm down and just think about lifting the armpit, making space through the rib cage. And breathe as if you're sending your breath in between each rib cage, nice and slow and gentle, opening up left side body and really soften the neck. So make sure you're not pulling your head in some funny direction and pulling tension into the neck. Open up left side body. And then slowly back through midline, feet to the ground. Knees up and take a little sway and take a moment to notice the left rib cage. Maybe the left side feels a little more open, maybe the right side feels closed in comparison. And then feet long again, stretch the toes down to the ground. See if you can do this without feeling like you're pressing the backs of the knees to the ground. So lengthen the legs. That's why we try to refrain from saying straight legs. So straight legs often makes us push our knees backwards. We don't want to push into the back of our knees. We want to lengthen the legs with energy moving through the joint easily. And then slowly take your feet over to the left side. Right foot can go on top of the left leg or just next to it. Start to connect with starting to open up right side body and then slide the shoulders over, opening up right side body. And focus on really pressing your breath in between each rib. Again, check in on the face and the neck. And then slowly bring the body back to midline, feet down, knees up, and a little sway of the hips, nice and soft. And notice if left and right sides are even now or still different. One of the things we often do in a yoga practice is try to be very symmetrical in our practice. However, our lives and our bodies are not symmetrical. So noticing your holding patterns. When you begin to practice on your own, perhaps you can notice that your left side needs more attention than the right, or your right needs more than the left in certain places. And you can start to hold longer, start to move with your own holding patterns. And then land on the ground and notice what is different from when we started. And bring the knees in, give yourself a little hug. And roll on over to his side and come on up to tabletop.
I realized what today's class was, and I'm very
Excuse me.
forgot it was standing room at class.
So moving and breathing in tabletop. Inhale forward, exhale back towards child's pose. Starting to really feel your hands on the mat. Breath in your body. And then come to tabletop and find a comfortable position for your wrists. So aligning your wrists so that they have a lot of space and you're not necessarily pushing down onto the wrist joint. A lot of people, when they bring that alignment right under the shoulder, they're crunching into bones in their wrists. So make space for your wrists. We're going to work with weight in the arms. We're going to have our arms and shoulders active. So start to feel like you're strong in the arms and shoulders, maybe pulling yourself up out of the ground. And feel like you're trying to pull your hands apart without letting them move. Start to find some muscle activation. We are going to intentionally move through the shoulders. So this is buckling in the shoulders. This is just hanging out in the joint, no muscle activation. We're going to do the opposite of that. We're going to start to lower our chest down towards the ground while trying to keep that muscle activation, and then pull it up. So lower and pull nice and slow. And this should actually feel like a lot of work. The muscle should burn and get tired pretty quickly. Smaller and slower movements with a lot of control and a lot of muscle activation can often be a lot harder than some of those bigger movements that we make. Watch for tension in the neck and watch for holding patterns in your low back. Soften your face. And then bring your chest about neutral. So not too high up, not too low down, but active muscles, strong active muscles. And we're going to roll one shoulder at a time in a slow circle. So a little slow circle, really slow, controlled. And watch for lots of movement through the low back and the hips. So a little bit of activation in either the stomach to keep your hips stable, or feel like you're pressing down through your knees to lock the glutes into place. So nice slow circles, trying to feel all the ways your shoulders can move. And then see if you can reverse the direction of the circles.
No.
It's really hard. then bring it back so that you have less weight on your hands, and adjust so that the left hand is pointing towards the knee. It can be close to the knee or it can be further away. Opening up the back of the wrist and just taking a little bit of weight, most of the weight on the right hand, so that you can move, lifting your wrist up and down, opening up the back of the wrist. And then switch sides. And again, we're not moving through joints, we're trying to find muscle activation, strengthening muscles that we use all the time without thought. And then bring that back. We're going to work a little bit through our back, lower legs. So, hands and shoulders, strong and active, comfortable. Take the right leg out even with the hip. Active and strong. So watch for buckling in the low back. Lift up, be nice and strong, strong leg. Hold the leg here. And then bend the knee, take the heel to the ceiling, and little pulses. So little pulses without moving the back or the shoulders. Breathe. And then straighten up the leg, little point of the foot. So think about moving through the ball of the foot, teeny tiny circles. So try not to move anything else. Teeny tiny, tiny, tiny circles, and then reverse your circles. So shoulders still strong, stomach a little active, lifting up out of the ground. Try not to move through the hips in the back, just the leg. And then lower the toes and press through the heel, static or little pulses, whichever you prefer. And take the tension out of the head. You can rest it on an arm. And then lower the right knee, take a little reset, and maybe adjust your arms. So the different shape of your arms, change the muscle shape that you're using. Find your base. Left leg nice and strong. So holding nice and strong, and watch what happens to your breath when you try to hold and balance. Bend the knee, heel to the ceiling, little pulses without anything else moving, just the leg. Face soft. Long leg through the ball of the foot, so pointing with the ball of the foot. Lengthen, strong little circles. Strong, strong, strong leg. Find more muscles. And then reverse the circles. Lower the toes, press through the heel. And then lower the knee, take a little reset, maybe adjust the arms and shoulders. We're going to think about the tops of our legs. So the front of the cuff, the shin, we're going to come on up to our knees. So if this is too intense, you're going to place a block in underneath your hips. So up onto your knees so that you can rest on your heels. Notice what is present in your feet and your heels. If this is enough, stay here. Try to get longer through the spine. And then bring the weight forward a little and tuck the toes. And then rest back on the heels. Long in the spine, stay in the breath, notice what is present in the feet.
My toes don't like being stretched.
This is an intense pose. It's actually called intense toe stance.
Oh.
It is intense. So, do you have the discipline to stay in the pose and stretch your feet? Do you have the discipline to notice when this is too much and not push too hard? Maybe you need to pull your weight up a little bit with your stomach and get up off your heels. Maybe you need the rest to block so that you're stretching with not all of your weight on your feet. Notice, feel, find your own practice, your own body. And then slowly adjust. Bring the weight back, untuck the toes. And for this one, you might want to use a block.
Thanks.
We're gonna stretch the front of the foot. So bringing the weight onto the right leg, lift up the left, and feel like you're pulling the front foot forward. Watch for knee stuff. So you might want to come up onto the block and land the foot onto the floor. So you want to really pull. So you're pulling from the top of the foot forward. You can lift up, 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 up. Just watch for any tension in your knee. If you have super open shins in the fronts of your feet, you've done a lot of toe pointing in your life, you may be able to come to the full pose, coming up and coming up onto the tops of both of your feet. If you're not in the full pose, start to shift the weight over to the left side and bring your right foot up, your right knee up, and pull on the right foot. So pulling through the shin. Top of the foot. Breathe. And then slowly adjust. So nice and gentle. Come to a seat. Need a chair? Go ahead and grab a chair. We're going to be here just for a little bit. We're almost done. So we're going to think about a little spinal movement. Kind of work through the whole body. So now a little bit of spinal movement, thinking about all the ways that our spine can move. So you want to get nice and even in the hips. See if you can feel the sits bones. See if you can feel grounded through the sits bones. Watch for what you naturally do with your pelvis. So what do you naturally do? Where do you naturally sit? Some people sit back a little more. Some people, the bone hits in their hip. So you might need to make a little space, especially if you make space onto a chair. You can make a little space by bringing your legs further forward on the chair. Try and find your sits bones. And then try and lengthen through the spine. So not what our grandparents told us, and stand up straight, push our shoulders back, push our chin back, try and get a straight spine. We try to keep the natural curves of our spine and push through the top of our head. So think about your spine, think about that lower back curve. See if you can find a kind of soft, natural lower back curve, and you may need to wiggle around and see if you can soften some of the low back muscles. See if you can wiggle the shoulders and find a more natural curve of your shoulders, not pinching between the shoulder blades. And then chin parallel with the ground and the natural curve of your neck. Still a little push through the top of the head. And then we're going to try and isolate and move through all the ways our spine can move. So thinking about the very center of our chest, and it can help to even place your hand here to remind you where you're moving from. We're going to move from the rib cage up, everything else still and soft. We're going to take little tiny circles with our chest, tiny, tiny circles. So notice what tries to do the movement, especially if your glutes try to do this movement, or if your lower core muscles try to do this movement. Try to get it right in the rib cage space. So you're thinking about the muscles that are close to the spine. Little tiny circles, and then back in the other direction. And then find neutral. We're going to bring both hands to the chest. And we're going to think about this center point. We're going to use it as our guide. Our inhale is center. Our exhale, we're going to tilt our shoulder over to one side. Inhale, center. Exhale, tilt. So now we're trying to tilt without using our arms to cheat or guide us. We're trying to just tilt and locate the muscles that make this movement happen. Notice if you're firing up the glutes. Try to find the muscles that are closer to the spine. Look for tension in the neck and the face. Bring your torso back to neutral. Inhale, center. This time, turning from the rib cage, using your hands as a guide. Turn to one side as you exhale. Inhale, center. And again, are you pressing into a foot or a hip? Try to locate the internal stabilizer muscles of our spine. And we're not trying to yank on our spine. We're not trying to make biggest movements possible. We're trying to move gentle and soft and isolate. And then bring it back to neutral. And this time we're going to bring our hands down soft, and we are going to move from the navel area. So a little soft, tiny circle here. You can actually place your hand here to remind you, but we're not rolling around on the hips and moving through the sacrum. Teeny tiny soft circle from this navel point. Watch for gripping in your hand. Yoga teacher was doing the gripping. Gripping in your feet and your hips, and then go in the other direction. Back to neutral, and a little cat-cow, but a little bit different, bringing our focus to this center point. So we're going to inhale, lift the center point of our chest. Exhale, pull it back. So we're not rolling over the sacrum. We're inhale, lift. Exhale, pull back. Mindful of the spine. So whenever we work with the spine, we want to look for muscles. And the things that we're looking for pinching sensations or anything that feels like tinglings or nerves. Never work past that. That's not muscle feedback. That's nerve feedback, and we don't want to push into that. So break the movement down smaller and take it more gentle. Connect to muscles. And then bring yourself back to a neutral position. Wiggle around, see how soft you can get. And then we're going to see if we can activate pelvic floor all the way to the crown of the head. So we want to think about starting down at the base of the spine and working our muscles upward close to the spine. So maybe feeling a little bit like you're gently pushing down through your sit bones to ground and then lifting up. So trying not to make the glutes active. Thinking about the deeper muscles, the ones closer to your spine. Watch for holding your breath. See if you can lengthen your spine a little more. Imagine you could just gently pull little pockets of space between each vertebrae, making nice, healthy pockets of space and fluid between your vertebrae. Imagine just with your intention, you can undo all the wear and tear we place on our spine. And then a breath practice with this spinal breath. So we're going to imagine that we can breathe in through the crown of our head, and our spine is a tube. We're going to breathe all the way down to our tailbone. And as we do that, all of that muscle activation softens. Everything gets soft as if you're falling down into the ground. And then as you squeeze your breath gently out, start at the base of the spine and gently lengthen and give a little muscle activation as your breath exits the body. Inhale, everything softens. Exhale, a little activation. Squeeze, lengthen, more space. And then we're going to slowly, trying not to wake ourselves up too much, make our way down into our resting pose. So nice and soft, take some movements to get down onto your back, or if you prefer child's, or if you prefer fetal position, making your way down. Taking a moment to land and notice what is different from when you began. Really challenging yourself to stay inside in the physical body experience for a moment, and the energetic experience, the muscles, the breath, the body. What is present? Maybe what is present emotionally, what is present physically, mentally, noticing. And think about all of the muscles of the body, the muscles in the feet, the legs, the torso, the ones close to the spine, the ones around the shoulders, the neck, the face. Are there any muscles still holding on? Can you send softness from the tips of the toes to the tips of the fingers to the top of the head? Can you imagine the ground carrying you, supporting you? So find the focal point of where you typically hold your tension, whether it's low back or across the hips, the glutes. Maybe it's the shoulders and the chest, and bring all of your awareness to this space. Focus on the muscles, on the bones, sorry. Focus on the bones. So if it's the hips or the skull or the shoulder blades, focus on them being very, 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 very heavy. Focus on them landing in the ground because the ground needs to hold them right now. Focus on them softening in as if the muscles are slowly softening and your bones are melting into them. Almost as if you're giving yourself permission to allow the ground to hold you, allow the ground to be supporting you. All your muscles can soften and take a break, let go of their burden. And then we'll move on to the mental layer of the body, of the human existence. So discipline with the mental layer does not have to be rules and guides in a certain way that you must have your mind working. The discipline is the practice of noticing what the mind does, noticing when it's the one controlling the show, and that perhaps more so than the whole system is functional. So the system needs to work together. We have the mind, we have the body, we have the energetic layer, we have emotions, we have all these different parts that need to work together. And when the mind is the one controlling and doing all of the work and being the sole star of the show, that's when things get out of whack. So the discipline is not to cognitively add in more complication. So oftentimes we try to cognitively understand what we're doing and then cognitively control the environment and cognitively control our mind. It's like a cycle, repetitive cycle of trying to force more cognitive control on a system that needs to already let go of some of that cognitive control. So it's not that we don't need the mind. Its function is very important. But we don't need to cognitively understand and control and label every part of our existence. So the discipline as we lay here right now is to begin to allow the mind to do what it does, allowing thoughts to just roll around. Noticing that thoughts are just neurons firing in our brain, and that is what our brain does. And the cognitive mind tries to discern and decide what is important. But if we take breaks from the constant categorizing, we can reset and recharge. So imagine your brain firing, perhaps even giving a visual to that idea of the brain being constantly trying to categorize our world. Maybe it's a little library in your brain, and your brain is just trying to file and categorize everything. And it's just constant stuff is coming in, and it's just constantly trying to categorize it, label it, place it, decipher it, translate it. And that's what the mind does, that's what the brain does. But we can step back from it. So imagine it a visual. Imagine it doing what it does. Imagine you could watch from a little bit of a distance. So perhaps you're imagining just the thoughts being neurons firing and just having some kind of visual of the neurons firing back and forth, back and forth. Being less and less attached to the description of the thought. And just letting it be a visual, letting it just fly around. Or maybe you're imagining your brain as a library with a little librarian in there, and it's constantly categorizing, and you're going to step back. You're going to watch from the living room. And every time you notice that the mind has drawn you into its story, drawn you into whatever it's doing, just gently imagine pulling back, taking a back seat, and watching it fly. You have the time to take in your resting pose. Please take as much time as you need. If you need to finish up at the 60-minute mark, you're going to start to bring gentle movements to the fingers and the toes, starting to awaken the physical body. And then curl up in a ball in a fetal position and take a moment taking just one more moment to let go, be on your mat, be connected to your inner wisdom. Wrapping yourself in some gratitude and kindness and compassion. And then slowly make your way to a seated position and bring your hands to prayer heart space and bow down. So bow the head towards your heart. Honor your inner wisdom, your inner guide. And then from this light within, honor the light within others, so lifting the head and sending your prayer, your honor out into your environment from your heart space, perhaps to someone in mind or just in general. The light within me sees and honors the light within you. Perhaps repeating this a couple of times. Maybe wrapping someone or someone's, multiple people, and greeting them. The light within me sees and honors the light within you. May we all know and understand a lot of compassion, respect, and kindness. May all beings be peaceful and at ease. Thank you for joining us.